Hi, Chickenbone Cohiba. It's basically Cohiba box, really nice Cohiba box. And I'm calling it Chickenbone Cohiba because basically the kit I've used to build it came from Chickenbone John. And it's the first time I've really used a full kit. I thought I'd give it a go. And it's turned out very well actually. I'm very pleased with it. Acoustically, got a bit of volume, but the old humbucker here really turns out nicely, so I'll turn it up and you can hear the tone. So that's at full tone. Turn it back down and you can hear. That's quite an effect. Other than that, it's got this floating saddle here, a floating bridge saddle type thing, and there's quite a big difference between playing it here and here, both in terms of volume, and tone. So if you look at a song like, I don't know, Wish You Were Here, where at the beginning it's quite light, it goes. Adjust the tone, so yeah, it's come out very nicely. I like these knobs, they look pretty cool, and the kit basically had absolutely everything you needed in it, including all the little bits of wire to go between, so you did all the wiring, had all the bits of the wiring, nice knobs, had little mini pots, which not sure if they're the best in terms of sound, but they're very handy for fitting in because they're very small, and so obviously fitting them in the box is easy. Everything else went together nicely. Tuner's okay, the neck's nice. Only two slight negative points. One is by getting the side dots in, they're quite hard to get in, so I don't know whether that's to do with one being a 3mm drill and maybe the actual side dot stuff being 1/16 of a mil or something, or 1 inch. Maybe there's something like that, but they're a bit tricky to get in. And on the bridge here, this floating saddle bridge, the distance between these strings is actually out by, you can probably see it, it's out by, say, I don't know, at least 1 millimeter. So these two strings here are 1 millimeter closer than these ones. This slot is effectively not really in the right place, but it doesn't really make any difference. It's just something, you know, you look at and you go, looks a bit weird, but other than that, very good. So I'm more than happy with that, and I'll probably buy another one at some stage. After this, there's more of an explanation of how I made this, or how it's all put together, and more details of the kit. So hope you enjoy it. Bye. Hi again. Something slightly different this time. I bought this really nice Cohiba box. Still smells gorgeous. It's black all round, plain wood, plain at the back. Really nicely made. If you look here, solid beauty. And I bought that actually because I wanted it for. I was going to make a pure acoustic guitar, but I think actually it's not really going to suit what I want to do. So I thought I'd try and just quickly make something with a kit. So I bought a kit from Chickenbone John. It's arrived today. This is the neck kit, so there's two kits really. There's the hardware kit and the neck kit. So I've ordered the neck kit, which has got a nice fretboard which has been slotted. It's got a slot here for the nut or a bolt, and then it's got the actual fret slots. 25.5-inch scale. The neck here, which has the cutaway style neck rather than anything with the scarf joint. And then also, which is quite handy, the second bit here, which is to glue underneath to give you the double thickness, so that you can you don't have to buy an extra little bit of wood. So that's looking good. It's all looking really nice. And then obviously we've got the hardware kit here, fret wire, a little wooden saddle with a fret wire across it, which is a nice touch because it means you can earth all the strings from one string. Little humbucker, some nice looking tuners, bits of hardware, a bolt for the nut, side dot inlays with the drills to go with them, which is a nice touch, and then pots, including a capacitor in here and some wires, and a jack for the tone and volume control. Quite interesting, these are very small pots, much smaller than I'm used to. If you can see them, they're quite small. I don't know whether that's going to make them sound any better, but we will make them a lot easier to place inside the box. They won't take up as much room as the other ones, which can be quite big, and they can limit where you put them. So they look good, and also sent me some strings. So I'm just going to put this thing together. There's a pretty decent set of instructions here. I've just read through the whole thing. You know, I've got to say, it's pretty good. The only thing you're missing here out of all this is maybe a sound hole cover, and that's very much a kind of decorative feature. So that's something you want to buy as to fit the box. But other than that, the whole thing looks good. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this and knocking it up quite quickly. I'm still going to do a basic drawing here, not full. I'm still going to do a full-scale drawing because I want to get the heights right in terms of the playing action here. So I want to know how far deep I need to actually cut down the holes here and the thicknesses of the things at the bottom. So, and I always like doing a drawing just to make sure. But looks good, and so I'm going to crack on with it, and we'll see how we get on. Right, so I've glued the fretboard on. I've glued this bottom bit on, and I've glued the fretboard on. I've cut down the end here, and so I'm actually it's gonna overlap by about that, I think. So I'm going to cut into the board, into the lid here, so that this is going to fit inside it. So otherwise I'd have lost a whole lot of frets off the end. Actually, if you follow the instructions from Chickenbone John, that you cut out the hole in the box first, and then you fit this, and then effectively you know how much of the fretboard to cut off, and then you glue the fretboard on, which is another way of doing it. Personally, I would do it this way because I'm going to have to plane this down, and then I'm going to have to sand it down. I'm going to put the side dots in, and so there was an element of cleaning up of the side, not by very much, but cleaning them up. And so the danger is if you cut the holes in the side so that it's a nice snug fit, and then you take material off the side, because you're cleaning up this area, and then you can end up with sort of a bit of looseness in there, which is what I don't want. But that's just my way of doing it. As with all these things, it's just how you want to do it. You can do it whichever order you want, but that's the reason I do it this way. Okay. Okay, so bit of super glue here. Dip it in the super glue. Put it in the hole. Little tap. Knock it home. Bit of a squirt of accelerator. And then a few seconds later, get a chisel in, nice and flat. Bit of a tap, oops, and off it comes nice and clean, and off we go for the next one. Of course, there are many ways to carve a neck. These things are brilliant, the old Japanese saw rasp. Yeah, and you can do it any number of ways. I've started using this because I quite like the feel of it, and you don't get dust. You can always use a flat wheel on an angle grinder. You can hack it in any way you want, but I quite like it's just doesn't give you any dust, and it's just a nice feeling when you do it. So there you go. As with all these, when you're cutting with a blade, you've got to watch the grain. So there's a bit here where there's a sort of swirl in the wood and the grain changes direction. If I go this way, I start to get tear out here. Best thing to do is to just swap over and push. You can push as well as pull with these things. See, there's tear out here, not here. So on this bit, I'm going to go that way. Yeah, mark it out with the existing neck, but I always cut inside the lines a bit, so that basically you can then finish it off with a nice fine file, and you can get a really accurate tight fit then. Because basically, if you cut it too big, that's it. You can't do anything about that. But make it small, a little bit small, and it's all good. So I'm cutting out the relief here for the neck, and as before, I'm going to cut a little bit small so that basically I can then file it to a nice tight fit after I've got out most of the chunk. Okay, after a bit of fettling, I've cut away the recess here on the neck, and I've also gone and taken out the notches at the back and the top of the lid. I always take the lid off the box when you start doing this stuff, because if you try and do it with it on, you just end up breaking the hinges. It's much easier just to take the whole thing off, and then file away until it fits nicely. And now I've got a situation where it kind of all fits nicely together. Nice tight fit, all down like that. And as you can see, this is poking out quite a lot here at the top. That's effectively 25.5 inches from the nut. So it's quite a high saddle. So you know, this needs to poke out quite a lot so you can get the action right down. And I've checked it out with the rule. It all looks pretty good, and so I'm going to assemble it now at this kind of height, and then when it comes to final setting of the string action, I can just effectively just sand away. I can sand down the height of the saddle, which will bring it down to where I want it to be. So that's looking good. So now I've got to cut away the notch at the back there, and also cut away the back here to fit on there. And now, because I can get my measure here, and I know that I've got 16 mil, so these need to go down 16 mil at both sides, and then things should fit in perfectly. So off we go. Okay, that's the bottom done now. Maybe a little tiny bit of tweaking, but basically it's on and it all fits very nicely, nice and solid. So now I'm going to finish off the neck, do the fretting, and then I'm going to cut a hole in here for the pickup. So we've got all the cutouts here, and then we just need to make some little blocks to go here and here, and then we can screw, when we put the neck in, we can screw from behind and secure the whole thing. We're going to glue these in now. Okay, and then what I do is you cut them out, cut them a little bit big, and then just, you know, file them down until they're really nice and smooth and equal there. So what I've been doing is just taking a little bit of material off here. So the edges of the box are going to sit on this section here and that section there. And then I've taken, I don't know, two odd mil out here, so that this section of the box here is unsupported, and basically the idea there is that it allows it to resonate a bit more, to get more of a kind of acoustic feel to it. Don't know if it works, but if you look there you can see there's now that gap. That's what I'm aiming for. So this is supported this end and supported there, and I'm aiming for that gap so that the bridge is going to be basically here. The bridge is going to be here, so it's there to kind of, I guess, allow this area of the box to move up and down and hopefully get some sort of resonance and acoustic tones to the guitar. I don't know if it works, but I don't know. Give it a go. So here I'm just giving the neck a quick flatten before I fret it. Obviously I can't fret it afterwards. It's got a bit of a sort of bow like that, which potentially is not such a bad thing, because obviously when you string out, it's going to come back. I've just got a nice flat beam here with some sandpaper stuck to it with double-sided stick tape and super glue, and I'm just gently, no weight on it, just with its own weight, just backwards and forwards and evenly, and that will flatten it out nicely. Right, I'm going to try something a bit different this time. Hopefully it won't be a disaster. But basically I haven't got time. I need to finish this thing before the wife gets back from holiday. And I haven't got time to buy inlays and stuff. So I thought I'd just try branding the inlay dots in. I've marked them all up. I've got 2 different size heads, and I'm basically just going to heat them up with a blowtorch, and I've had a couple of tries, just slowly just dab them on, and hopefully not make a kind of complete mess of things. I'm going to have the fan on, the extractor fan in, to try and suck the smoke out of here, so it will be a bit noisy, but we'll give it a go. Obviously the other thing is, when you put these things are going to get really hot, I'm going to get really red hot, so when you finish with them, put them on something metal, and not on the wood or drop them on the floor. Otherwise it's going to be really messy. So we're just notching out space for the pickup to go. It's going to sit in there. Also, you need to notch a bit out so it's got space to fit. Don't have to go all the way through, only do about 10 mil because half of this is going to poke out anyway. So I'm now just putting another coat of finish on. I'm using Crimson Guitar's finishing oil here. I've already done about 3 coats on it and it's looking nice. Initially I actually put the oil on with 1200 grit, which has a kind of, it smooths out any imperfections while you're applying it, but at the same time it generates a certain amount of sludge which acts as a pore fill, and that works out very well for the first couple. And now I'm just going to apply it by wiping it on with some paper towel. Because it's already had a couple of coats, it doesn't sink in that much. The first coat really sinks in, and you have to put, quite a few. You sort of redo it a couple of times so that it all sinks in. But now you're effectively just wiping a small layer on top of the existing layers. I did do 2 layers on the fretboard, 2 coats rather, but I don't want it to be too shiny, so I've left it with just 2 coats. But the rest of the neck and everything I'm going to do about 4 or 5 coats, so I get a really nice kind of gloss shine on it. It's really quick, doesn't take very long. You just have to then let it set for a while, cure. Is a better word, not set. Set's for puddings, isn't it? So, and then we do the end here. It's very nice stuff, this oil, I have to say. It really brings out the beauty of the wood, and you just build it up until you layer upon layer until you get the finish you want. It starts off quite matte. The first time you put it on, you think it's not going to be very good, but then as you put more and more layers on, it gets more and more shiny. So that's that, and now you'll feel it's starting to dry off already. It's quite warm in here, it's quite dry, and it's about 20 degrees or 19 degrees in here, so I find I just basically start wiping it off straight away. And it seems counterintuitive to wipe the stuff off, but what you're doing is you just let a certain amount soak into the wood, and then you're just wiping the rest of it off, and that way you get a really nice finish. And using this paper towel, kitchen towel, it has a very kind of very super light abrasive kind of effect to it. So you're almost buffing the wood as you're going along, because it's got, I don't know, silicates in it, I think. And there you go. And now, make sure there's nothing in there. Just hang it up and let it cure for another few hours. I'm also doing the bridge here. The bridge was quite a light wood. It was more like that kind of a wood. And I stained it using this, which is basically pickling vinegar, where I put a whole lot of wild wool in it and left it to soak, and it's come up with this sort of interesting looking goo, sort of chemical. I just wiped that on, and it basically does something funny with the with chemicals in the wood. I think it brings out the tannins or something, and it's come out a nice dark. So I'm just going to give that a couple of wipes with finishing on as well to give it a nice finish, and then we're done. It's hard to do this without getting on your hands. Come out quite nice. So I'll leave that for a minute, and then I'll just wipe off the excess like I did with that, and leave it for a few hours, and then do another coat. I think that's probably going to be the last one, the next one, and then we're done. The other thing is, apparently, if you leave this stuff on paper, as in the finishing oil, on paper, as it dries out, it can apparently spontaneously combust. So you're meant to either stick it in water, or I just chuck it in the garden in the rain and then pick them all up. But yeah, apparently that's the case. There you go. Right, before we put it together, I'm just going to go around with a permanent marker, because this is black permanent marker, and just darken all the edges so that they won't stand out when it's all put together. Because obviously these cut edges are going to show up potentially. So by doing that, you know, it just makes it a nice, clean, dark edge. And I found a big, nice chisel point marker pen. Does the job nicely. Go all the way around here. You don't have to do the inside bits because they're not going to potentially be seen, just the... So I'm just looking at mounting the pickup here. I've had a look at the screws. The screws have got a sort of blank bit of shank there, which means it's going to basically, when it's screwed into the wood, actually it's not really going to be gripping on the wood here, because it's so, that level of that empty bit of non-threaded bit there is the thickness of the wood. So I'm going to use the lollipop sticks and glue them on there to give a bit of thickness. It'll give it a bit of extra strength, and also means there'll be much more thread for the screw to get stuck into. I just buy these off, you know, eBay. They cost nothing. Like, you get 50 for £1 or £2 or something. So just break them off and glue them on, and off you go. Squeeze on there, have a shuffle about, make sure it's all got nice and some glue on it, and off you go. So we're going to put these rivet things in here as a sort of guide. I like to just knock it out first, because if I try and, I've already put the one in the bottom, if I try and knock it out that way, it's just going to get stuck in the middle. So give it a little smack, hold it gently. It's a bit tricky sometimes getting this to start off, but as long as you hit it in the right place. Okay, and then tap it home. So I've done the 3 on the top, 2 on the bottom. This last one, I have to put in the ground wire here, which I've already drilled a slot. Actually goes there, and I can see that it comes out. Yeah, I can see the wire coming out there. So if I can hook that up, that will be ideal.
That would really be cool. Yeah.
There you go. I didn't expect to be able to do that, but I've managed to hook the wire out. So all I've got to do now is strip a little bit of it off. There you go. So I'll get that off, pull that back through, and I can just about, I'm going to put it through until until the insulation bit has just disappeared. Yeah, so I've got the thing just poking out here. I'm going to get my rivet, get the thing out of my rivet.
Hold that.
Hopefully, oh, it's annoying. Hopefully, get out of the way. Be able to push it in and trap the wire. There you go. Okay, so now I'll give it a quick test. I'll just strip some off the end of this. God, bloody thing. Get the meter out. So that should. There you go. So that's connection, which means that we can earth all the strings through that wire, and they'll all be earthed. We can earth one string through that wire, and then that will then be earthed because the bridge has got this metal thing and it will earth everything else. Excellent. Right, so we've got these bits glued in here now. So I'll just run this drill through the existing hole. And screw this thing down. So I finished assembling the pickup. So you can see it's screwed through the supports here. Drilled the hole through these, and then you just basically assemble the whole screw thing. It's a bit tricky sometimes, but it's not that difficult. And you know, just give it a rough adjustment. It's probably going to come up a little bit, but I'll do that later. So now I'm going to put in the pots. These pots I've already. I did a dry fit with the knobs, and it turned out they were sitting quite high above the board, above the front here. So I've actually on both of them just cut half the top of the pot off with the Dremel, so that when I put these back on, they're going to sit nice and low. So now it's just a case of just pre-prepared holes, stick them in and screw them up. And I like to line, if we line that up the same as this one, then you know the knobs are going to start and finish in the same place as well. So it looks good. I'll just give that a quick tweak. You don't have to overdo it, it's just to stop it from getting loose. And there you go. So when you put the knobs on, I always like to have them so that they line up nicely when they're on and off. So turn both the pots to a full one way. You can see that the slots are lining up, and then you know, okay, if I put this in here, then it's gonna be a pain in the ass. Turn the other way. So yeah, so after a bit of adjustment, you can see they line up, which is good. Now for soldering. Okay, that's the wiring done. Nothing too complicated there, all standard. Really what I'm going to do now, I've still got to wire in the earth for this and also that to the jack, but I'm going to do that when I'm finally assembling. So next I'm going to put the tuners in here because I want to do that without it all being wired up. It's going to be easier to handle. So I'm going to bang in these, don't know what you call them, ferrules or something like that. Now that everything's finished, you want a bit of a cloth under here, make sure you don't end up damaging your nice finish, and obviously support the neck so that you don't end up damaging the neck. Get it lined up. Hopefully I'll give it a whack and in she goes. Let's try the next one. Okay, so I've put the tuners in, just going to line them up nicely. Give them a little tap with the bradawl. I've measured the screw and it's 1.5, it's about a 2mm screw, so I'm going to use a 1.5mm pilot hole, and then we should all be good. Obviously you'll be very careful not to drill through here, because if that pokes out the other end, there's no way you're going to, well, you could probably fix it, but that's going to be a difficult thing to fix. Just going to give it a bit of just a bit of wax there. If we go in, then should go in nice and easily. It doesn't have to take much force. It's really only there to locate it and stop it spinning. Right, one down, 5 more to go. So before I do everything, I'm just going to drill the holes in for the back, because that's going to be easier. So measure it out, put the holes in.
Pilot holes.
Okay. And then a little bit of wax on with the washer. Wax. Washer. There you go. So, got that all done. All I've got to do now is wire. You screw that in, but I'm going to put the lid on first. And we should be good to go. Okay, so it's all assembled now, strung up, vaguely in tune. I've basically set the intonation by measuring from there to there to 25.5 inches. But there's a couple of little things that I'm going to need to sort out. One is here. The saddle came with some little grooves to show you where for the strings to go in, but basically only this lower or upper strings actually going into the slot. The other two are sitting on top of the slot, so that's no good at all, because they're not. They need to sit right in it, so that you can get the intonation right and the sound right, and also they need to hit this metal bar here so that they're all equally earthed. The other thing is the action. Well, that will drop the action a little bit as they come down. The action's a bit high, so I'm going to have to take some material off the bridge and lower the whole thing down. And the other thing is, on the back here, this did come with some washers to put on here, which is probably a good idea for logic spread, but they made the screws stick out a little bit too much, so I've taken them away. And also the other major thing was that because of the way this is so tight here, once I put the box back on the hinges, so it was a lid, I couldn't shut it. It wouldn't go past. There's no way it was going past. It wasn't just a little bit, it was completely. So in fact, what I've done is I've taken the screws out again of the hinges, and the thing is just sandwiched together. It's got a little catch at the front here which holds that, and to be honest, the spring pressure is holding the thing together. So actually it's just being held together by the springs. So I'll get some nut files and work on that. It's a bit like filing a nut, and then we'll start working on the action. Otherwise it sounds good though. Quite a nice acoustic-y sound. Lots of volume, which is great, because that's what I wanted.